Developers spend more than 60% of their time doing non-coding activities. If you find an area that people are doing repeatedly and takes a lot of time, if you optimize those using AI, there might be a great startup there. It's like a marriage because you will be spending a lot of time with this person for 7 to 10 years. If you don't have respect for each other, then it's a bad idea to get into a co-founder relationship. Don't wait for a perfect product to interact with customers. If you're not embarrassed by your initial product, then you waited too long. So what do you have as a small tiny startup compared to big enterprise companies? What's on your side is speed. Everything is a wrap-up company. A real conversation is how much value are you delivering for your customers. As the CEO, one of the things that you constantly struggle with is prioritization, because if you make wrong decision, you can easily spend 3 months building something that may not be as valuable.
Welcome to FounderCoho. Share founder story, feel founder journey. Today we have Nazrul Islam to join us to share his story. Nazrul is the founder and CEO of CloudAEye, an AngelList top 10 AI startup. He's also a Michigan Rose MBA with 47 patents. Let's hear Nazrul's story.
Thank you for having me. CloudAEye is a developer tool startup. So one of the staggering statistics that we learned when we started the company is developers spend more than 60% of their time doing non-coding activities. So things like debugging, testing, monitoring, deploying, supporting production, those type of activities. So other than coding, all of that activity consumes 60% of their time. So what we are trying to focus on is how can we improve developers' life by providing various tools so that developers can very efficiently and successfully do these activities without having to do these things manually, repeatedly. So by delivering these tools, we want to make developers' life better, and as a result, free up their life, free up their time, and then that time could be utilized for more productive and fun activities.
Awesome. Yeah, that's like amazing tools that will make many developers' life much easier.
Yeah.
And a lot of the members in the communities are founders who are, or who they are still working on becoming, but want to be founder one day. You have amazing careers in big companies like Oracle, leading the technical teams over there. And then you choose to be a founder. What led this transition?
Yeah, so I was part of Java team at Sun Ecosystem. So I spent about 7-8 years of my career there. We were focused on how to make Java #1 programming language during those days and attract all the enterprise developers in the world. So during those years, I worked closely with developers communities. So that gave me some insights and foundations on how to think about developers. And I was a developer myself. Later on, when I moved into management, managed developers as a leader, and that also gave me another perspective of what are the challenges enterprise companies face. So the combination of both, gave me some unique perspective on where to focus. When I was considering to launch CloudAEye, these background experiences helped me pick this area, I guess. And in terms of advice for community, in terms of how to think about launching a startup, if that was your question. So we are going through this amazing time where you can launch a unicorn with 10 people startup, right? So it's actually a great time to think about startups. And there are lots of things that people are doing repeatedly. And if you find an area that people are doing, manually, repeatedly, happens, all the time and takes a lot of time. If you find those use cases, if you optimize those using AI, there might be a great startup there. Yeah. That's how I would, frame the conversation in terms of how to think about launching a new startup.
Exactly like you mentioned, we're in an incredible time that AI is changing many things. So what I hear you say that if you are in any companies, or in fact anything you are saying that is repetitive and can be automated, it's probably a very good time to use AI to automate those things and create value for your customers and launch a startup. from that.
That's right, yeah. So I think 2025 would be year of AI agents. So you'll see a lot of new kind of capabilities coming into the picture, and there will be a lot of adoptions. So every single workflows that people are doing currently, you can ask yourself, could we do this better? Could we make it more frictionless? Could we automate these things, right? And if the answer is yes, there might be a startup. Now, these may not be the most interesting, most, lucrative use cases. These may be very boring and, things that people may not, want to do. They don't look forward to doing these things. But those are perfect use cases for,
Agent is very, very friendly field. There's a lot of things happening here, which we'll dive a little bit deeper later. So let's go back to your journey of the startup founder. And I realized that after you left the big company job, you actually started to do MBA. So tell us a little bit more about that experience.
I was at Oracle, and Oracle was going through this transition from a on-prem, software company to a cloud company. So they were sending all their, executives to these classes. So the classes were organized between two universities, University of Michigan and a European company called European school called IESE. So we were doing 1 week in Europe and 1 week in Ann Arbor, and in between we were doing a project. So it was like a fascinating way of getting a peek of how to rethink creativity, how to convey shape, those kind of things. Sort of like a mini crash course in MBA. So when I took that program, I was really enjoying that program. So I spoke to the professors at the end and asked what would a MBA program would feel like, and they said it would be a much longer version of this. And then that kind of inspired me to kind of consider my executive MBA program. And then I remember the last day when we finished our program. One of the teacher, he, introduced me to the program director, of the executive MBA program. And that's how I started thinking about, pursuing my executive MBA. So I remember, talking to that person for maybe 10 minutes and then, remembering that, there is a deadline of applying. So I never thought I'll get in because, these are great schools. And I wasn't sure, whether they would, consider me. So then, when, there was a, deadline was approaching, then one weekend I actually sat down and applied and in the initial phase, and then I flew in for a face-to-face interview. And the folks who were doing the interview, they thought I would be really, really good for the program. So after the interview, they offered me a position in the admissions class, and then that's how I started my journey into the executive MBA program. But it was not one thought out, it was kind of like one thing led to another. That's how I pursued it.
Yeah, so you get some ideas about what MBA looked like, and then after realizing you like that, you then approached it and actually started to pursue the MBA on a full-time basis.
Right.
I'm also curious that what is the biggest takeaway from the MBA program?
So I always, had my colleagues tell me that you do really great in a startup because I was always getting things done, and they thought I would be perfect for the startup. But I never had kind of a business background. So I always was apprehensive about taking the plunge. So when I went to business school, one of the things that I learned was kind of how to look at a business from a financial perspective, from a marketing perspective. So I cannot, so. If you are thinking about doing a startup and you have engineering background and you're kind of nervous like me in those days, MBA can give you the kind of the grammars of how to think about businesses and how to think about various challenges a startup may have. So for me, MBA gave me the kind of the reassurance that it will be all right if I start. And the faculty and the staff, they were very helpful. They were supportive. In my personal essay, I actually talked about, having this, dream of launching my startup, but I was always afraid. And then towards the end, they were, one of my coach, executive, leadership coach, she was like, yeah, you have all these skills to, do your own startup. You should really launch. So they are very supportive and encouraging as well.
And I also realized that before CloudAEye, you also did another startup for a couple of months, 9 months. And for is there any takeaway you got from that journey?
That was mostly the kind of should I or should I not phrase. So we were actually thinking through like what startup to launch, area to focus on. So I would say that was kick the tires phase before we officially kind of registered the company. And unofficially, actually, I did a small startup long time back. During those time, we were trying to do services by we thought we have enough skills and we were trying to do it part time. So one of the things I learned is startup and part time doesn't really work. You have to really get into it full time if you want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And once that's also I learned from my personal experience, like really being a startup founder is a full-time job, and you need to put your heart into it
Exactly.
to really get ideas. So let's move to that next part. Like then you started CloudAEye, and you described a little bit about the company already. I'm curious that how did you get an idea?
That's interesting actually. So during our executive MBA program, there is a class that we took that was about entrepreneurship. So the class required you to take a business idea and write about it as like a paper, as if you're doing that startup for you. So that put the seed in our head, and then a couple of us started talking about startup ideas after lunch for a few weeks, and then that led to lots of ideas, and then we were like, okay, let's figure out which one of these are actually worth pursuing. So one of the brainstorming idea was what do founders bring to the table? Like what kind of experiences do we have? So we named it What's in the Fridge. So the idea was, you cook dinner based on what you have in the refrigerator. Right? You normally don't go to the grocery store and buy something. We were like, okay, let's figure out what background do we have and what ideas then we can generate based on that. So during that session, since I had some, Oracle Cloud background, some DevOps background because I was, associated with Jenkins. So I thought about this idea of building something in the developer space with AI. So that's how we got into CloudAEye.
Yeah, I know that for a lot of founders, they have a defining moment for them to really get a conviction. I'm going to get this startup started. For CloudAEye, is there any particular moment or experience that you would like to share?
Yeah, so I was kind of on the other side of this problem where what I noticed is this customer escalations that happens pretty much every week or every other week. And we were frantically trying to deal with it. But most of the time it was mostly a manual approach. So when I started thinking about various ideas, my initial reaction was, I wish there was a tool that could automate all of these, customer escalation problems, so that we wouldn't have to spend hours looking through the data to resolve a problem. So then I started talking to my co-founder now. At that time, he used to work at LinkedIn as an AI engineer. So I used to talk to him and try to understand, okay, what are the kind of things AI can do? And what are the opportunities there? And based on those conversations, and I also subsequently I took some AI classes to educate myself. And then I realized that if we could thread the needle between cloud, DevOps, AI, these few areas, there is a nice automation opportunity. So that's how we got started with CloudAEye.
Yeah. Another very big, important decisions you need to make to be a startup founder is decide who you want to work with, find a co-founder. How did you find a co-founder for CloudAEye?
It took actually a lot of time and effort. So initially I was interested in this idea of using AI for automation in this space. So obviously I knew that I needed somebody who has strong background in AI, and then I started looking for a co-founder. But then my co-founder, current co-founder, he was happily gainfully employed at LinkedIn, so he wasn't considering to move. So what I did is I recruited him as an advisor at that time initially, and then got started. And then when he made some progress, and then he got convinced that it's actually worth for him to also quit his job. So then he also joined full time. But it took me several months to convince him. And I saw this interview with I think Steve Jobs, he said he waited like a year to recruit one executive because he didn't want to hire anybody else because he thought this person was perfect for that role. So that convinced me that I should wait and see whether I can convince my co-founder, and then eventually I was able to convince him. Yeah.
One thing you mentioned about it's actually a very great strategy is that if you want to find a co-founder or hire a very important person, one way is also making them to be involved through arrangement like advisor arrangement or other ways, so that you can get ideas whether it will work well together. And when you both get to know each other way much better, then it's much easier to make the decisions.
Yeah, the early days were actually funny. So because I had cloud and DevOps background, so I would understand the domain and the problems in terms of like the kind of challenges I used to have, or the customers would have. But then my co-founder had lots of AI background. But when we talked, we would talk like this. We were not connected. After him taking a look at this domain and me spending some time taking some classes, then we started talking at the same level. So it was interesting to think about those early days and realize that we are talking about lots of basic initial concepts, and we're trying to like educate each other that okay these are the challenges, and he would tell me like okay these are the ways you could do things in AI and stuff like that. But we came a long way after that.
Yeah, exactly. And many people would treat it like a startup when the product takes off, but actually there's a much longer journey before that, including co-founders figure out the best way to working together. And it's not an easy task because everyone has their own expertise, background, and thoughts. Since you mentioned about that, you and your co-founders have slightly different background, but also you both have technical background before. So that's one combination. But there are also startups who one founder is primarily focused to go to market, another co-founder is primarily on the technical side. There are also cases where two technical founders. What is your advice or thoughts on what makes the best founder team?
So it's always good to think about if your co-founder is complementing you. So like you said, if you can find combinations where one co-founder is very strong in the go-to-market side and one co-founder is strong in the technical side, then it's a great combination. But what I would say is at the end of the day, think of it like a marriage because you will be spending a lot of time with this person for 7 to 10 years. So think about whether you have respect for the person, whether you would be able to work together and make strategic decisions without having conflicts. If you can have those relationships, those are the matches for co-founders. If you don't have respect for each other, then it's a bad idea to get into a co-founder relationship. The other thing is it gets messy because you start a company, you have equity, ownership, and things like that, and then if you have to part ways, actually not a good situation. So I would advise for new startup founders to think through carefully, see if you are excited about working with that person, right? Does the person complement you in skills that you don't have? In my case, I didn't have AI background, which I needed for sure to start the company. So it made perfect sense. But if you had other combinations where you have all the technical skills and you need a sales or go-to-market leader, that's even better if you can find that. Overall, take time to think through and make sure that you are comfortable spending a lot of time with that person for 7 to 10 years.
Yeah. I think one thing you mentioned that which is really resonating is that this is a person you're going to spend a lot of time for the next 7 to 10 years.
Right.
So it's very, very important you have complementary skills, but at the same time, the trust, the respect is very, very important.
Absolutely.
You have to be very enjoying to spend time with this person.
Right.
Yeah.
And also like clarity of all the details, like how do you split equity, who does what kind of roles and responsibilities you have between the two of you. Because early days there is a lot you have to do. So it's always great to have very clear trust, and like you have to feel like your co-founder will have your back and you will have his or her back. When that happens, then you're
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like even with high trust and respect, there's some structure. Like you need to define your scope and responsibility that will help further strengthen the trust.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing this community on this very exciting experience to get the component study. As we all know that getting component study is only the very first step of the startup building. And then after that, we need to figure out our customers, figure out the product market fit, iterate our product. Do you have any advice to founders who to iterate and find a product market fit?
Yeah, so one of the advice I will give is don't wait for a perfect product to interact with customers. So in business school, they talk about lean concept. That's actually very true. So the sooner you can engage with customers, the sooner you can get feedback, the better it is for you. So some extreme examples is like don't even build anything. Like if you can somehow communicate your idea to see like whether there is interest. You are saving yourself a lot of time by building something that customers may not be excited about. So similarly, when you are starting out, one of the famous videos is if you are not embarrassed by your initial product, then you waited too long. So the idea is build enough so that you can communicate your vision for the product, but engage with your customers as early as you can, so that you can get feedback and think of it as like a very cycle. And the other thing I would say is don't worry about having a big launch and mega launch of your product. When you're a startup, you are not a very well-known brand or you are a very famous brand. So launching repeatedly is a good idea. What you need to do is you can build something, interact with your customers. Obviously, you'll get a lot of feedback because you have barely built anything, and take those feedback and then build those, and then next month go out again and say, hey, I build all of these things, and try to do this repeatedly and as fast as you can. Another thing that I would say is if you think about what do you have as a small tiny startup compared to big enterprise companies, what's on your side is speed. Startups can move very fast compared to big enterprise companies. So utilize that as your strength. So if you can move very fast, develop very quickly. Amazon talks about that day one mentality. The first day you have this excitement. If you can maintain that throughout and engage with your customers, then I think you'll find your product market fit.
That are really useful and very resonating. And also, would you mind sharing a little bit of the iteration you have done in the CloudAEye that leads to where you are?
Yeah, so we went through a couple of big pivots and iterations. So when we started, we were thinking about building the infrastructure layer for observability, and then we built an AI-powered observability solution, and then we spent 1 or 2 iterations building these things. And then what we realized is the existing solutions that are in the market are big $40 billion companies. So it's very hard to cut through the marketing, and then we started focusing on the AI layer on top. So that realization we found out the hard way. If we had found it out sooner, we could have saved much of time. So in terms of our journey, we went through this pivot of let's focus on the AI layer, and that actually gave us momentum. And then as we started to focus on what we can do with that AI layer and optimize various workflows, that led us to the developer ecosystems. Yeah.
How many customers currently CloudAEye has?
We have early initial customers that we are working with, that we launched our latest product that focuses on test failure analysis. So when I was in a conference, AWS conference, one of the person I met there, she approached me about a problem that she was having in her company, and we then later on got together and talk about the use cases. Then we realized that we can actually solve that problem. So that led to the creation of this new service that we are currently promoting. So what it does is it helps you analyze test failures in your CI/CD. So as a developer, when you push new code, it obviously goes through a bunch of tests. So if any test fails, then what we notice is in an enterprise, developers spend half a day to a day per week fixing those tests. If you can save that time, you can actually save 10% to 20% of developer time.
Yeah.
So we worked closely with this public company to build the service, and we are also working with few other companies at the moment to kind of share.
For the early stage startup, customer acquisition is very, very important. Do you have any thoughts about customer acquisitions? Those you can share from your experience with CloudAEye or advices to the founders and community.
Yeah, so early days, customer acquisition is mostly driven by founders because you don't have a sales team that you can rely on. So what you do is you rely on your personal networks that you have, because people you worked with before, they know you. So you reach out to them and see if any of those personal networks have a pain point that you solved. And that's usually the first thing that works. And then after that, the local meetups and local get-togethers, particularly if you live in Bay Area, there are a lot of meetup that happens. So if you meet other founders, other executives in these meetups, those are usually good places to go to and talk about your solution. Recently, just to give you an example, in GitHub there was a AI Day tool session that happened. So we submitted to talk there, and we were one of the 10 startups who talked about CloudAEye there, along with a few other startups. So in the area there are lots of opportunities like that. So for startup founders who are here, I would encourage get out of the house and engage with the local community. That actually gives you a lot of opportunity to interact with other founders and other executives.
Yeah, exactly. You had a great point. As a startup founders, you always sell your product. Whenever you meet, always have the pitch ready. They potentially could be your customers. They could potentially be your advisors, be your employees all the time. So really leverage your personal network as a starting point.
Yeah, in that note, this community that I had the opportunity to attend is also a great community. So, come join and attend the meetings here. You meet amazing people.
Yeah, so another very important pillar for the startup is the product, because there's nothing in the startup unless you have a great product. And to the product part, can you share a little bit more about the CloudAEye's product and what is your thinking about competitive landscape you are in?
Yeah, so the current product that we are focusing on, that we, like I said, we stumbled on it based on a conversation with a customer. When we work with the customer closely to understand their flow, what pain points they are going through, and then realizing that we can actually solve these problems is unique in our case because we were lucky to find that kind of use cases. So for that test failure analysis, we haven't seen other products like this in the market yet, fortunately. So there is one other company that does something similar in the the quality space, but not so much in the the developer space, where like a very integrated experience with CI/CD, things like GitHub Actions and Jenkins all integrated, and when you push your code changes, actually show you the root cause of the problem, and we also give you a code fix suggestions. Those type of experiences we haven't seen. So I would say we are slightly unique or lucky there. Most of the time you have other competitive products. So we have built few other things that we have not launched yet. So one of the other solution that we are in the last stages of development is code review. So obviously there are a few other code review products out there that does this, but what we are focusing on for a code review perspective is a lot of developers are building AI agent, RAG-based solutions, lots of AI code. And what we notice is the companies and enterprises don't necessarily have all the expertise that are necessary to successfully transition those early prototypes, codes into enterprise-ready solutions. So we saw a need for AI safety and security. So the code review solution that we are planning to launch will have AI safety and security in mind. So the idea is, if you are a startup or a company, who has let's say bunch of prototype or MVP type code, and you are scratching your head in terms of, okay, how do I take these solutions and deploy them and make them customer facing. Then if you use our code review solution, we will help you make sure that your code doesn't have vulnerabilities that will be exploited. So that's like one way we're trying to differentiate ourselves with other code review solutions.
Sure. It's very, very important, solutions to help ensure that your solution is safe and also make the development life cycles much more efficient and better.
Yeah, so actually on the code review front, one of the staggering statistics is, so let's say after you finish debugging your code and you spend half a day to a day going through the CI/CD test failures and then submit your code for code review. Yeah. On an average, enterprises are spending 7 days to get 2 human code reviews. So if you submit your PR today for 2 human code reviews, it takes 7 days. So you actually get it resolved after a week. So by having some AI automation there, helps speed up the code review process as well. So the way we see it is, if you have an unbiased AI based code review, which is very thorough and details, this will help the second human code reviewer to acknowledge that these are important things to fix, go through the list of items and prioritize them as well. Because our code reviewers has labels in terms of security, severity, and also scores. So the human reviewer can actually go in and then validate those as well. So that way, the person who's reviewing after the AI code review, that can be a lot faster than what it would normally be. Talk to few engineers. So I'll give you one other example. So in one company, they have the culture of different departments reviewing each other's code. So one of the challenges with that is, if you are not used to all the code written by another department, then obviously you go for code review, you're spending a lot of time. So one of their requests was, hey, can you add a bot that can answer me code related questions? So we added support add CloudAEye, explain this block of code kind of Q&A. So that the human reviewer who's trying to go and review this code, may not be very familiar, they can quickly get help and finish their code review without having to spend a lot of time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you mentioned about AI agents earlier. Well, AI agents is definitely super popular and hot in the valley right now. Right. Many people say that 2025 might be the year of the AI agent. In particular, I think the AI coding agent has been super hot. It's like a high-flying startup like Cursor when the service coming. How do you think about generally in the space? What are the things that make you feel most exciting? And how do you think about the trend of the AI agent, in particular coding agent?
Yeah, so Google recently announced that a significant portion of their code was written by AI agents. So that was eye-opener for everybody. One of the other things that people are beginning to realize is these agents truly make you more productive. So when I go out to meet other founders, what I realize is everybody is building agents. There is hardly anybody you can find that did not somehow associated with an agent. Last night I went to a meetup where there were 4 companies who were pitching, and everybody's name had AI at the end, and then everybody's name also started with an S. So they were making jokes about it. Leaving that aside, if you think about agents and the opportunity and how to think about all of these products. So on one hand, you are gonna see all these amazing tools coming up that's gonna change how fast can you get things done. Now, obviously, your competitions are gonna be evaluating those. So if you are not upgrading your engineers with these tools, then you may be, because your engineers are taking longer to do things than your competition. So obviously, evaluating these tools and figuring out how to adopt them in your workflow is going to be important for folks who are kind of like the consumers of these tools. And then the other thing that is super important is as these AI agents coming in and redefining the space. So if you are doing X today, you have to think about, okay, is my customers capable of doing that already using these AI tools? And if that's the case, then somehow you need to get up the value chain and figure out what can you do on top of the utilizing AI agents so that you can continue to deliver value to your customers. Because at the end of the day, if you are not delivering value in this new landscape, then you may not be as attractive to your customers as you are today.
Yeah, you mentioned about a very, very interesting concept called, like I heard it's mentioned about this move up to the value chain, which is very, very important. And even before the AI agents, that trend already happened. Like many people were working on more like the infrastructure layer or working on directly things that direct competing with OpenAI. And it's very, very hard to compete with those giants. Building things on top of them actually is a great strategy to help to build some differentiated product.
Right. So there is this conversation about, are you a wrapper company? And, if you're a wrapper company, are you that valuable? So the way to think about all of this is, at the end of the day, everything is a wrapper company. The real conversation is how much value are you delivering for your customers? I saw a comment where somebody was saying, NVIDIA is a wrapper company on top of Microsoft Azure. So from one perspective, extreme perspective, everything is a wrapper company. So then, the conversation is not so much about wrapper company, non-wrapper company. The conversation is really about how much value are you generating or creating for your customers, and and are customers excited about those values. And then the second thing is what's your stickiness? If you are generating some values, how likely are customers to kind of switch if there is another value in the system? So that's getting into the conversation of moat. But in terms of the value, I think that conversation is has not changed. It's the same conversation that was true before, and it's true now.
Yeah, you mentioned about a very interesting concept of stickiness. Like stickiness of your product to your customer is very, very important. What do you think, like to your field and also for generally enterprise software, what characteristics will make a product to be sticky to the customer?
Yeah, so in the kind of the developer tool space, if you are providing, let's say, APIs, then once a developer adopts those APIs, then there is a cost associated with kind of like switching over to another set of APIs. So that gives you stickiness, because if you get the adoption, then developers are likely to stay with you unless something really goes wrong. So that's like one kind of stickiness that you can get. The other thing that you can think about in the developer space is how much are you making the developer productive. So if you are kind of saving them a lot of time, the product is very intuitive to use. So the way to think about it is how likely is the adoption curve. So if the adoption curve is then your startup is likely to do very well, because if you can make your product very adaptable, meaning you don't need a lot of complicated journey to kind of adopt your solution. Then you can actually get into product kind of growth that actually gives you very hockey stick kind of.
The time to value, or like making it super easy for your users to adopt, is very, very important for growth and retaining the customer as well. Yeah, cool. So let's switch gears to another topic, which is about technical leadership. So you have an amazing career of leading technical teams in bigger companies, and now you are a startup CEO. That is a huge transition and change. Have you faced any challenges in the processing, and what are the biggest takeaways?
Yeah, so as the CEO, one of the things that you constantly struggle with is prioritization, because the enterprise, you are responsible for a much bigger team. So you have a lot of tools in your arsenal, but when you just get started in a small startup, then you have a much smaller team. So one of my realization was prioritization is key in terms of like what do you do, how do you spend your time, like what do you decide to build. Those decisions, we should scrutinize and make sure that you have that right. Because if you make a wrong decision, you can easily spend 3 months building something that may not be as valuable. So that's one thing I saw. And other thing is you have to be very judicious about how you spend your resources. So you're a small startup, every dollar counts. So you have to be very smart about how you utilize those resources. Because every dollar you invest in your startup, you have to make sure that it helps you grow. So those decisions are also very crucial in terms of let's say how do you launch? Do you spend money organizing launch parties, or do you do it? So those decisions, where do you spend money decisions?
Yeah, you mentioned a very great point, which is that when you work in a big platform, you wouldn't worry too much about resources. But in the startup environment, every resource you have, every hour of time, every dollar you have is very, very precious. So you have to, you are in a situation you have to be really cautious about making every decisions that often leads to smarter decisions, which is also one reason why startup can move faster and can do better than big companies. Do you have any decision frameworks or any tools that is helping you to make decisions faster?
So we use a DASI framework from Atlassian. So in the early days, when we were trying to make decisions on various things that are impactful, so let's say, for example, what tech stack would you use? We went through this decision framework that Atlassian introduced. So I used that, and one funny story is, so I was part of Java team. So obviously I thought, we'll use Java in the startup as a programming language. And then once we evaluated, the programming language choices, we ended up not using Java. What I can say is, if you go through the documentation and unbiased, critique of various options and include your stakeholders in terms of making decisions, not only you make good decisions that you can live with, and these also gives you a record of the reasons you make these decisions, so that later on, if you want to go back and think about why did you make the decision, it's actually all documented for you.
That's really, really helpful. So the next question I have is that what is the biggest challenge you have faced in your startup journey, founder journey in general?
So the biggest challenge I'd say is my background is mostly technical. So I am very comfortable building products. I have built many products in my career. So building the product wasn't, it was challenging, but it wasn't out of my comfort zone. But when it comes to doing other things, for example, marketing, sales, that was a lot of learning. Getting used to doing outreach, sales outreach, those things I had to learn.
And I myself is also a technical founder with technical background, but now I'm also the CEO of my own startup. So what you mentioned is very, very resonating. As a startup founder, it's very, very important to build a product, but at the same time, it's equally important to make sure the world knows your product. That involves a lot of work like sales, marketing, put yourself in the public so that other people will know you.
Yeah, absolutely. In these days, actually, that's equally or more important, I'd say, because a lot of people can build these amazing tools and solutions, but what would differentiate between startup is really the ability to execute on the go-to-market or distribution channels, right? So the startup with the stronger distribution channel will eventually win.
Do you have any advices or any resources for founders to improve on those things?
Yeah, so one book that I really loved is called The Qualified Sales Leader by John McMahon. He was like 5-time CRO and built amazing companies. And the book is very easy to read. So for first-time founders with technical background, folks like me, who don't necessarily have a sales marketing background, I would suggest that book. You learn it on by reading that book. The other things I'd say is for folks who are considering to start startups, the YC school, startup school is really good, and YC has lots of videos that they publish. Watching those gave me a lot of insights into how to think about various problems in this startup journey. So I would suggest looking through those videos, and particularly do the startup school videos for sure.
Thank you so much for sharing the resources. And also thank you so much for sharing all your journey and insights with the community. Is there anything that the community can do for you? Are you hiring? Are you looking for some experts from certain domain?
Yeah, so for help, what I would say is we have built a few tools in the developer space, and we are going to release few more things in the coming weeks and months. So we have a free freemium solution offering for each of these tools, meaning for individual developers it's free to try and use. So if any developers out there who are watching this, please come to CloudAEye.com and sign up, try our so that's the way we can improve and make it better for you guys.
I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of developers in the community who will absolutely enjoy your product. For FounderCoho community members, we'll leave Nazrul's company website in the comment in the description below, so please feel free to check it out. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Founder Interview, and very looking forward to see you in future events, and also see you in some of our interviews as well.